Hi all, welcome back to another session on web methods. So in this video, I would like to show how to expose in our integration server as an OAuth authorization server. So in short, what I wanted to say is, so in one of the ServiceNow demo, we have seen that for getting the OAuth token, we invoke the ServiceNow external URL to get the token and then use that to send the actual request and get the data done. So here, what I'm trying to do is, so we have seen username, password authentication, API key authentication in WMIO. So here we are going to use OAuth authentication for web methods case. So let's say if someone invokes our service, first they'll invoke with the client ID and client secret, which we give them. And then once the token is validated, then they can do the actual request. So let's start. So what I wanted to say is, see, this is how it would be. The OAuth use case is, this is the client, or OAuth server, and there will be resource server. So the business client will request access token to the OAuth server. And in the OAuth server, it will verify whether the client is present in the OAuth server or not. If it is present, then they will send the access token. And with this access token, he will invoke the actual request and the validation of token is done. If the token sent is a valid one, then it gives the response back. So in our case, what we are doing now is, in our case, the business client and OAuth server, see OAuth server and the resource server is our web methods only. So the business client will send a request to web methods. So we will verify in web methods whether the OAuth is client is registered with us or not. If he is registered, then we'll, based on the grant access we have provided, we'll give him the code, and using the code, he will send back the request to web methods here, and then we will verify the validate the token that is sent, and then send, if the token is valid, then we'll give back the response to him. So let's see how we can do it. So first we need to create the OAuth client registration and do a scope management here. So how do you go ahead? Click on administration, security, OAuth, click on client registration here, and click on registered client. And here the redirect URIs are important, and giving the version and description is also important, and all these things we need to do. First, what I'll do is, before coming here, let me create some services and I'll show you which services we'll be using there. So say auth demo. Yep. Create with the same name. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to create some services. Yeah. I'll be reusing some services from the WM public. So I'll show you what all services we'll use. First thing I wanted is to generate token, right? I'll write generate token. Yeah, I'll just use it as a play. What do you say? The once the request, as I showed you in the example, once the authorization is done, we need to capture the request. For that, I need a service. So I return this dummy service for now. And I'll be reusing the services from pub OAuth, authorize. This service is used for authorizing the request, and it takes these inputs, and we will use, once the authorization is done, a code is sent back to the requester. So that would be captured by get token, and we'll use get token to generate the access token. Yeah. And we'll use introspect token, which is to validate whether the token is active or one. And if you wanted to revoke some tokens, we can use revoke tokens. And if you want to remove the expired tokens, you can use the remove expired tokens. So let's start. Prior to this, I'll just copy this service, dummy service for now. I need it. I'll say why I need it. So oAuth demo. Yeah, v1. And in the redirect URL, I'll use this http colon localhost colon / invoke. I'll invoke this at runtime. So I'll use this and I'll be granting the authorization grant code, which will have the grant type, grant underscore type as authorization code. We will use this. And these are all the different grant credentials type, which you can go through the documentation and understand what exactly it does. For in this, I'll show you authorization code grant and click on. You can set your expiration interval also, like where you want the token to never expire, or you want to expire this in some seconds, or the global setting is less than 1 hour. So I'll use this and then limit if there are any refresh counts. Let's say if the client wanted to use a refresh of the access token, then he will pass the grant type as refresh underscore token and do it. So I'll click on OK, save. Now our thing is saved and we have generated the client ID. Now if I go here, the client secret will also come. So we need to copy this and send it to the customer who is invoking us. Yeah. Once I have registered, I'll get back and we need to map the scope also, right? I'll click on add scope. So I'll give it a description and I'll say in the scope, this will be there. Yeah. I'll create one more service also, which is to, as I said, I'll be using authorization. And say it's authorization request. I'll copy this and paste it here. Only these will be the services that should be accessible by the scope. Save. And once you have created the scope and all, you need to associate the scope. Go here. If you don't associate with the scope, the oAuth will not work. So the scope is associated successfully. Now let's go and first start with authorized request. Yeah. In the authorized request, what I'll do is I'll drag and drop authorize and also parallelly copy these details. This should be my input structure. Additionally, I'll pass the client secret also, that is also needed. Yeah. So once this is done, let's see what happens if I run it. Will it directly authorize or will it throw any error or not? So how to do it? Just right click, run as, go to your OAuth again. And copy these details. This is client ID. And this is your client secret. And this is our code. So let's just run and see what happens. See, after running all these details, I got some additional outputs from it, which is redirect URI, which is nothing but the service which we specified inside the scope, sorry, inside the redirect URI and the scopes. So let's say, for example, I'll not give any scope or something. I'll disassociate the scope. Yeah. And now let's run. See what happens. See, it is now still thinking whether the scope is not present or not, and it will take some time. So it is still determining whether the scope is present or not, and this takes a lot of time to get through. So I'll close this and reassign the scope back. Save changes and now run it again. See, now it doesn't think much of it and it gives you the output. Now I have the scope here. In the scope, you can have multiple services and all in this. So now let's assume that there could be multiple services. In this case, what I'll do is scopes. Yeah. So once the scope is received, we need to authorize the request. Like approve, in short, we need to approve the request. So for that, we have a built-in service inside WM root, uh, which is called. I'll show you if I don't know whether my WM root is enabled here or not. It's not enabled, so let me go back to settings. Extended. WM server dot. It is called as I'm not able to see here, but it will be generally called WM dot server dot. See, this is the service we need to use, but you can't use this service directly. And let's see if we can use it directly or not. Anyway, yeah. See if we can use this directly or not. So I'll pass we are getting the scopes here, right? It's not scope, scopes. So and we are looping it. So scopes. And let's assume that if a person is passing us the details correctly, we'll approve the request. In reality, like whenever a request is sent, you will get a pop-up saying whether to approve the request or not. So here in the programmatical way, I'm saying I'll directly approve the request if someone is passing me client ID and client secret correctly. It's thinking. That means this services kind of thing, which these are things which we can't pass directly. So what we need to do is instead of passing this directly, I'll do a HTTP post to it. HTTP slash VM dot server And the method is post. Was expecting scopes. Copy this. Was expecting this response type, client ID, redirect URI, scope. Scope, redirect URI, client ID, response type. Additionally, there was one more field called APP. I'll hardcode this value as true. I'm hardcoding this as true. So now let's see what happened. And also, in order to invoke that, I need to pass the credentials here. I'll give our credentials, server credentials. Yeah, and then I'll run it and see what happens. Also, let me see the output that is coming out. So I think I kept it as bytes. Sorry, load as bytes, or you can keep stream whatever it is. And I'll use up the string colon bytes string. I'll convert the bytes to string just to see what is coming in the output. And parallelly, just will keep save pipeline and see here. Yes, token. So we just wanted to see whether the redirect URL will actually route that data to this service which we created. So now I'll run as see now when I am encapsulating that inside pub client HTTP instead of directly calling, I got some output either positive or negative, whatever it is, we got it. So it says this thing and status is 400 wn.server oAuth is not present, right? Was it the same service name? wm.server dot server dot oAuth approve. Anyway, copy this one more time, delete this guy and go to scope. Sorry, I didn't keep invoke tag here. See, we need to keep invoke. And now run it. So it has run the flow. The status is 200 and it has given me something here. See, some authorization code it has given me. Now if I go to gen token, we kept a save pipeline here, right? So let's see what is the value present here. If I go and up flow, restore pipeline from file and restore it. So that means we received some request and we also got the code here. So now we got the code and we got the grant type and this is the and scope. Now what shall we do is we need to do one more thing here. When we are passing the scope, we need to transfer the client ID and client credentials also to this guy. So when they are extracting the tokens and all, they should get the output. I mean, for passing the credentials, they need the credentials, right? Let's pass this inside the headers. Client ID and client secret. Now let's see one more time. I sent it. And if I click on OAuth token, here we didn't get it because we passed that inside the headers, right? So now if I wanted to see what header parameters have really come, I'll just go here and say pub dot flow colon transport get transport info, sorry, get transport info. So this one will get us the details of headers that are passed at the runtime and we are passing it inside the headers. So let me extract that headers part, which is coming inside the HTTP request headers. And inside the request headers, we are passing the client ID and client secret, right? So if you go here, see we are passing the client ID and client secret there. So I'll extract those fields from here, paste. Client ID, client secret. Now I'll bring this say pipeline down just in case to see whether we are actually getting the values or not. So how to do that? Just right click and run it. So the details have been sent there. Now if I go here, see, I got the in request header. I have this client ID and client secret. So this is how you pass the details from one flow to other flow, and from the subscribing flow or the invoking flow, you can use get transport info to get those details. Now I got the details, right? So now what I need to do is I need to call one more service, which I'll call using this HTTP only again, pub dot client colon HTTP and URL. Here, remember one thing, I'll show you why I'm using HTTPS. I'll be using HTTPS here. I'll say why I'm using that and also show you. Localhost colon 43 slash invoke slash pub dot oauth colon get token. Yeah, I'll call this service and we need to use method post load as again bytes, and in the data in the auth let me pass this user as client ID and the password as client secret. And if you guys remember, we were getting some details, right? What are we getting? We were getting the code, grant type, redirect URL, scope. Let's use the same thing here and pass code. Or let me go to this pub flow oAuth get token. I will copy these details and give that as inputs here. It is just to make our life easier. Yeah. So I've got the code, I've got client and all. So I'll use redirect URI. I'll use the grant type. This grant type will come from the integration server. So we need to pass this and also the scope, right? So now let's see what happens when I invoke it, and prior to that, let me add these bytes to string again. Hope I kept it as load as bytes, yeah. Bytes to string, and let me pass the details again. Yeah, and where should we go? Oops, I should have kept the save pipeline at the end. Yeah, I've kept it at the end now. Now I'll run it again. And run the restore pipeline from here. If everything is correct, we should have the access token ready. See, now we got the access token. Now let's come back here. See, client has come. Web OAuth is the web methods thing here. So we have registered the client here, and now client has sent us a request using client ID and client secret. So we verify the client whether client is present. So in our integration server, we have done the registration. So client ID is present in this case. Now the request will be verified against the client ID and client secret that is passed, and the consent is given. In this case, the code is given back, which you could see here. We are giving out a code when the request is sent back. Yeah. So now request goes the token here. So, I mean the code is given. So when the code is given to him, he makes another call with the code and all. Yeah. So once the call is made with the grant type as authorization code and the code and the scope and everything is filled, then we'll get the access token. Once you get the access token, so here one thing is missed here. See, they are requesting for access token. We are providing a code, and that code, when the user approves it, you will get a token to him, right? The verification and the code token is done, and once the token is given, he will use that token and then sends the request to web methods here. So in order to not to confuse more, I'll say here, see, in our case, we'll have only two things. One is this guy, another is this guy, right? First time, first time, this guy is sending the request with the client ID and client secret. Client secret, right? So integration server verifies this and it gives out a code, right? Once the approval is done, it gives out a code. Using this code, they will make a request again. Yeah, code, client ID, secret, and scope are passed. Now this time, once the validation is done, we'll give out access token. Once the access token is given, then this guy will make the actual request. Actual request with access token. Yeah. Once that is done, then a response will be sent back for the requested resource. Response for requested resource. So this is how the OAuth will be done, and this is the most preferred authentication nowadays by most of the clients. So now you got the token, right? Here we were stuck with like we have got the token now. Now let's what we need to do next is we will validate the token. How do we do that? We are getting a string, right? So that is JSON string that we know, and we'll convert that JSON string to document. Pub dot JSON colon JSON string to document. Yeah. Once we get the document, we will call the introspect token. Yeah. We'll call the introspect token, but I wanted to show you something interesting here. Just wait. Yeah. So here, let's copy the string here, whatever that access token we got. And here, what I wanted to do is, see, additionally, I'll add some fields called num1 and num2, right? So now what are we going to do? So we are converting the JSON string to document, and we will map the token from here, right? So it is access. Was that? Oops, sorry. It was access underscore token, right? So access underscore token, I'm taking it and I'm mapping it here. Yeah. So also let me run this and show if the access token is correct, then should get the output as true and see. So let me debug. Here I'll pass the JSON string. Here I'll pass something. Okay. 10, 9, 11. Now I'm debugging it. Now the JSON string is converted to document, right? And we are getting this access token inside the document access string. Now see here, we have all these things in the pipeline. When the request goes through introspect token, everything is flushed out. See, there is no my document structure, and there are no num1 and num2 which I passed. So it is flushing out the other pipeline variables, but we need those data to be present. So how do we preserve those documents and all those things that should be passed along this thing? So here we need to make use of something called scope, and I'm instructing the introspect token that, see, your scope is only with the document. So whatever that is there outside of your document, you don't need to worry about it. So you don't have any authority to flush my input and all those things. So I'll map this thing here and save. Now let's debug it again. Relaunch. So string to document. Now observe, we have all these things, and we kept it as, we said that okay, your scope is only till document. Now take it. We'll say on your face. Now let's see here what happens. See, everything is still remaining intact, and it says the token that we have sent is true and nothing is flushed out. So this is how you use the scope. That's the main use of scope, actually, to limit the pipeline to that particular step. Now after we get this scope, we can add our own logic and say, now I'm going to add the variables, right? I'll call something called add-ins. My love affair with add-ins never subsides. So I'm adding it, and also I'll check the condition as branch on document slash active. If that is true, call my API. Yeah. Now let's see again. I'm running this. I'll say 100 and 200. The value should be 300 now. See, this is how you validate your OAuth thing and do it. So you need to pass your tokens and all those things. So you need to generate your token. You need to authorize a request. Using this service, you can authorize your request. And once the authorization is done, you will get the token here. And using that token, you will call the actual URL. So you can use this three services, or in fact only one service. Yeah, validate token, and then once the token passed is correct, then you can use that as your service. And I mean, we can validate your service based on the token passed and call your actual APIs. So if the token passed is valid, then allow the request to come in. If the request passed is invalid, then ignore the request. This is how you can do OAuth implementation. Thank you.